a difference between mentorship and discipleship. Mentorship is come and meet with me. Discipleship is come and follow me.
Hey guys, welcome back to At the Table with Jess. I'm so excited. We have my friend Grant Skeldon today. He's sitting down with me. He works for THINQ Media and is super involved with bridging the gap between culture and faith. So Grant, thanks so much for joining.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm going to let you share a little bit more about your job because we've been talking previous to this and I've kind of watched you from afar and just deeply respect what you're doing with culture and faith right now. So tell us a little bit more about what you're doing.
Yeah, well, I mean, I want to give a lot of honor to Gabe and Rebecca Lyons. That's who started THINQ. It used to be called Q for a long time.
Yeah.
And most people never knew Q stood for questions. And just the whole goal was, or people don't know that Gabe Lyons, he wrote the book Unchristian in his 20s with Dave Kinnaman, who's the now president of Barna.
Yeah.
And it was like one of the bigger books that helped people understand, at the time, millennials. And he also started a Catalyst conference with John Maxwell.
I didn't know that.
And so he was 26. He was a vice president, one of the youngest at with Maxwell. And there's like, hey, we need to do something around leadership for young people.
Yeah.
And Catalyst started. Have you ever been to a Catalyst?
I haven't. I've seen them, but I haven't.
Maybe you've heard the rumors though of what
Mm-hmm.
it's. I mean, this is. It's very. It was very innovative and creative
I
at
would
the
say
time. It was an
pioneering.
experience.
Yeah.
I was highly impacted by Catalyst.
Wow.
But if you know Catalyst and you know THINQ, or what became the Q conferences, they're very, very different.
Yeah.
And so after a while, I think Gabe was like, "Man, I like this, but we're not talking about what's going on in the world," because it's what a lot of pastors are challenged with now. Is like. Yeah. Can I use the pulpit to talk about this? And can I even go to the depth I want to or need to?
Yeah.
But there's so many new topics I'm always supposed to be talking about. And so Gabe created THINQ so that they could help leaders kind of navigate faith and culture with wisdom. Definitely that verse about they knew the times and knew how to respond. One last thing I'll say on it is we're very known for like 9-minute talks. And so it's instead of 4 to 6 speakers at a conference for 45 minutes, it's 9 minutes. And so it's super, I would say, not just cutting the fat, it's like cutting the good stuff. It's really hard to do the 9 minutes, but it's really power packed. And so anyone from Tim Keller several times, Malcolm Gladwell, Mark Burnett, who does like movies, and to like Lecrae or Teo Hayashi is, I know, a friend of ours. And just a lot of different unique leaders. Lisa Bevere and John Bevere have jumped in a lot lately. And so that's, just trying to help, for me, the next generation now think wisely about culture.
Side note for my brain, why 9 minutes?
I think part of it was around TED was starting to take off. And but also there's so many different topics that are going on in culture. It's like 1 week we should all be knowing about this. And now there's even a pressure we should be talking about it, posting about it, apparently experts on it. And then the next week, it's a whole new topic. And so I think some of the ideas, we can't be experts on everything, but maybe THINQ could help you have a palpable, short conversation or a Q&A or message from someone who is an expert. So you know some of the key parts about that conversation that we should, especially as Christians, be aware of.
Yeah, I love that. So we're having this conversation at a very tense time in our nation. 6 days after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, among other tragedies that happened last week. To me, kind of your message and what THINQ is doing is probably needed as much now as it was in 2020, right? Like when we were navigating so much Me Too movement, Black Lives Matter, COVID, I mean, everything, right? It does feel like the pressure is being turned up for pastors and leaders to always know what to say, when to say, having the answer. I think for me, something that I've really been trying to navigate with the Lord is like, how do we disciple well in this time? Like, how do we have really poignant one-on-one conversations? What do you, and you can speak for yourself or you can speak for THINQ, totally up to you. What is your advice kind of to leaders in this season as we're trying to navigate some of this? Like, do you have, a couple of points that you're like, here's some major things we've been looking at with our young people?
Yeah. The first thing that comes to mind is 2 days after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, Gabe Lyons put together a call among a lot of like leading churches and authors and speakers and just a lot of people who are kind of shepherd our nation in some sense. And what I love about what he does is like he tries to create spaces where these leaders who shepherd so many can also take their cape off and they can pray or they can receive. And there was one of the leaders on that call was Zach Mearcreeps, who is the guy who in the beginning of Asbury kind of opened up the floor, called people to respond and said, well, I'm going to be here as long as you guys want to be there. And 16 days later, they were still there. And he said this line that really stood out. So when you ask me, what should we do in response to such like tragedy, and especially in this pressure cooker moment, he said this phrase, consecrated confidence. And I see this passion in the next generation. I don't always see authority in them, and I don't think you can muster authority. I do think you can muster passion. You can be tired, show up, not even be in the spirit, not be in the word, just keep pushing and pushing and pushing, and still show up and like, for an hour I can do this. But authority, it requires like intimacy, and it requires consecration. And I don't think the next generation was taught that as much, or at least saw it prioritized. There's so much pressure to build a platform and to even rush a platform. And so that's probably what I think is really important, is if we could, there is a boldness that's stirring. I think we don't have to look far on this social media to see, man, Christians are getting a little more bold, but also this consecrated boldness, consecrated confidence. I think that's where you're going to see, yes, our boldness. And then I think we've all been to events where we're like, we did all the work, we put all the details together, we prayed over this, but there's some things God did beyond what we did that we could only explain by him. And I think it'd be really amazing if we did both of those, like consecrate and then respond with authority. Yeah,
I love that. I love Zach's book, Lower. So he's got such an incredible message on humility. He walks it out super well. So I love him, adore him. I think one of the things that, like what I'm hearing you say that's really interesting is sometimes in these moments, we have people that they haven't been putting in the time with the Lord. They haven't been putting the time in the word. They haven't been putting the time in. I'm sure you research plenty, you know, like we're researching culture. We're trying to put our pulse on what's going on. But then these moments come and they want to have authority just because now they want to say something. And this is actually something that you're cultivating, you know, long before an incident happens or occurs, right? And that's what I've been really impressed by certain leaders, that we know, like they're walking the walk long before tragedy comes. And then I have an ear to listen to them because I'm like, you've put in the time, you know, you've worked in the space. Gabe would be one of those that I'm like, no, you've been talking on these things long before these issues have shown up, you know. When you guys do these conferences, how do you pick the issues that you decide to address?
Let's see. I do think about, what am I hearing young people struggle with a lot, and that's sometimes faith stuff that also bleeds into culture. Like a big one these days is deconstruction for young people. A big one these days is leaders falling. It's almost like one after the other, and it's like a dagger to so many young people. And I'm sure you've seen this as well, maybe Jessica, is I feel like I've never seen as many young people that feel like they have a warranted reason to leave the church, and they'll usually point to those leaders falling. And so it's a cult that's spilled into culture too. And then the third one, actually really big, I feel like among young people, that's a cultural conversation, is manifesting, new age, spiritual warfare. There's definitely an openness even among unbelievers of like, I do think there's something spiritual going on. I don't have the answers or the way to respond. But those are some of the elements. And then what I do like about Gabe is he leaves maybe 20% of those spots to talk for 9 minutes open till like the last 3 weeks, and then pick some people based on what's going on right now. Because when you do plan a big conference with as many details as THINQ does, you often are chosen those people by 9 months, a year out, because you need to promote it as well. But it doesn't leave much room to respond to the moment. And it's been cool when, like, let's say when Hamas showed up in Israel, like the very first, I think it was the October 7th. Is that we had our event like maybe 5-7 days after that. And so to have a Christian Palestinian and Michael Mastretta, who you might know, he's with Firm in Israel, to have them both talking, it felt like this just happened. And that last year's conference happened 3 days after the election. And so, I really liked, it is cool to be in the room and be like, man, okay, this is like, we all have been talking about it, and now they are talking about it on a larger scale.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, I think The ability to navigate, which this kind of segues into some of discipleship, what I want to talk to you about, but to be able to navigate current issues that young people are walking through. And before we got on camera, you made this comment, and I just love it. You said, I feel like my bread and butter is people who have autonomy. So working with young people who have the ability to make decisions. I reflect on my life, and I'm like, I am in large part a product of the people that walked with me in my 20s.
Yeah.
The ones who took me, and helped me navigate political issues, the ones that helped me navigate going to a secular university, those kind of things. And the ability to address current issues is huge. What role do you think discipleship plays in all of this when it comes to walking out a worldview?
Dallas Willard has a quote, something to the effect of saying,
My hero.
There's no immaturity in man that couldn't be solved by discipleship.
Wow.
And so
love that.
I really think that almost anything, like if you see something, the work ethic of young people, because I'm starting to get old. We're starting to get old.
I know.
We have a girl over here who's, what?
23.
23. Okay. 23 years old. Like, me and you could say some things that make us sound old now. And I always say, you're old whenever you have to explain or say anything like, hey, back when I was your age, we, for example, like, do you know what the sound of Wi-Fi used to sound like? Do you even know what I'm talking about? Because we know what we're talking about.
We could hear it and identify it.
This will be interesting because 23 is not like, it's not like I'm talking about like 12-year-old. Do you remember what Blockbuster was? Or did you ever go to a Blockbuster?
Yes, a couple times, like when I was little.
Okay. Yeah. But it's like these places where we say, back when I was your age, there wasn't Netflix where you just clicked. You had to like go get a cassette, rewind, be kind and rewind, and all these things. And I think, just with discipleship, I feel like you're always spiritually a couple steps ahead of someone, and you've always been through a couple stages that people haven't been through. And I'm convinced we don't have a next gen problem. I think we really have a discipleship problem. But if you see, let's say, older people, I was kind of joking about how those things, but a lot of older people are like, oh, I don't like their work ethic, or back when I was young, our work ethic was like this. But if they're not around people that work like that, like Jessica, it sounds like you've been around, you got the privilege to be close to some great people and thrust into that at a very young age. But that's like that caught, not taught discipleship, where you see a woman or a man live in a certain way. You're like, mental notes that you're taking, I want to live like that one day. I want to do that, or I want to do that now rather than having to wait. But I think most young people, they're like, they're just looking to the left and the right, and they see, hey, everyone else works like this, or everyone else quits after a year, or everyone else goes church to church, or isn't really getting too serious about getting married or having kids, or whatever thing is kind of confusing to the older generation. And so discipleship, I think, exposes young people to a different set of values. Like, the best thing that happened to me when I was young is I got saved, and 2 weeks after I got discipled. And I actually thought that was normal until I got older and went to college, and I realized that doesn't usually happen. Because I got this guy who called me 2 weeks after, wanted to pour into me. I started reading the Bible more. I saw discipleship in the Bible a lot. I was like, oh, this is so cool. And then I started seeing my friends leave in college, leave the faith and leave the church. And I was like, man, why am I still here? And often I thought it's because of Kevin, this guy it's not like I'm just committed to an event that I go to on Sunday. It's like a relationship, someone who would call me up and check on me. And I have a mission. Like, he really always empowered me to go reach my generation. So I was like, I have community, I have a mentor, and I have a mission. This isn't just going on Sunday. Sunday, if anything, is like a launching pad for me to get restored and go back.
Yeah, I love that. Can I dig in a little bit deeper to your relationship with Kevin and what discipleship has looked like in your life?
Yeah.
I think one of the most common questions that I get asked, because I live in a house full of girls that I disciple, which I'm not telling everyone that that's the best idea or what needs to be done. You know, I'm in a stage of life where that works for me. Probably the most common question I get asked is like, how do I do it? I would love to disciple somebody. I do agree it's in scripture, but how do I do it? I'm assuming you've been discipled by multiple people.
Yeah.
What are some of the keys that you would give to people to say, like, these are some things that were really beneficial in my walk with Christ that these leaders did for me?
Invite me into their life is definitely one of the biggest ones. I think we over spiritualize discipleship, and it can go into deeper levels, but simply starting by, hey, do you want to go with me? I mean, that is, it is interesting that that's how Jesus started a
Right.
conversation.
Yeah.
Is, hey, follow me.
Come,
It's like
right.
almost a command.
Yeah.
But he's like, and I'll make you fishers of men. And I think that, you know, I was speaking to a lot of CEOs in Alabama once. This is probably 7-8 years ago. And I was saying, I mean, if you could just like, you should have a shadow. You should have them join you. You have no idea how many, especially I was like, guys, like you guys are like business leaders. This next generation is so entrepreneurial. If they can get time with like marketplace leaders and see y'all's life, you don't have to teach them anything. Just let them watch. Let them tell them, hey, you have to be a fly on the wall. You can't come in here being rambunctious or loud or put your feet on the table, but you can be in the room and you can ask me questions afterwards. That alone would be powerful. And I remember one of the like the lead CEO types who's like super influential among the group. He was kind of making fun of it a bit, and he was like, you know, Grant, you think what I should do is just go up to some young employee that I got and be like, hey buddy, come follow me. You want to join me? And he's like, because I think that they would think that's weird. And all the other guys were laughing at the situation. And I've never been asked that and made fun of that situation, but it's like the Holy Spirit like hit me, and I immediately thought, that's what Jesus did. Like Literally. He kind of did that. And they're all strong Christians, and they definitely felt like and I said, but I get it. You are making fun of this situation because it doesn't happen. In fact, we almost never get asked as Christians, are you discipling someone?
Right.
Which I think is one of the core issues, is that we ask each other about like, are you in a small group? We ask, what church do you go to? We even ask people like, are you voting, or who did you vote for? And so we have more accountability on our voting than, are you part of the Great Commission that making disciples? And so I'm actually not against any of those other things. I think we should be faithful citizens in where we live, but I'm like, let's not change the scorecard, but let's enhance the scorecard to where Christians feel like, oh, I'm not supposed to just show up on Sunday and join a small group and give and maybe volunteer, but I'm also supposed to like have a shadow, a young person who I'm like influencing. And it doesn't mean I'm arrived. Like I always try to take the pressure off of, I think the enemy's been really good at getting the older generation to feel like, what do I have to offer this generation? And I always say, like, Paul didn't say, follow me, and that's it. He said, follow me as I follow Christ. And so the pressure's not on you to be perfect. It's just follow me, join my world. And I even tell my disciples, this guy, Bubba, from New York City. I don't know how. I do know how he got a name. Apparently, as a baby, he got called Bubba, and he has kept it. But he's from New York City, and I just started talking to him. He's going to go with me to some things. But I told him, I always say, I'm going to say, follow me as I follow Christ. But sometimes I'm going to say, follow me as I like stumble towards Christ. So just know, just like your walk with Christ, my walk with Christ is not perfect. But that verse that says about like, I'll fall 7 times, and the Holy Spirit will not allow me to stay there. I will get back up. And I found that most young people actually like seeing that more real relationship with God that does stumble, and instead of trying to put on a perfect show, it's like, and God still loves me, and we're going to keep going towards him.
That's a shift that I think I've seen largely with young people right now in this generation, though, is I don't want you to prove to me that you're perfect. I actually want you to prove to me that you're not, because that's the only way I have hope. Like if I look at you and you're perfect, I can't do it. But if I look at you and I see how you navigate your shortcomings, that's really huge. You know,
talk about it, because you know, your parents know that we have to do that as parents, because our kids get to see all the stuff, and that's why I think a lot of youth grow up with their parents. And going to church, it's kind of like, I always joke that I knew the Holy Spirit was real because my mom became a new creation whenever we went to church. It was almost funny. And I do it too. We all like sometimes show up at church, and all of a sudden, even if we're like so down or even angry at each other, the second we walk into church, like our tone changes, like, it's great. Hey, how are you? And, but you don't get to do that really, because they live with you. And so, what are like the beauty and benefits of that, but then also the challenges? I love that you just flipped the script and started interviewing me, but that's amazing. Well, I don't like when I interview people and they don't ask questions. I'm like, this is an interview or conversation.
No, that's great. I absolutely love it. I wrote a book called Trials to Triumph, where I have an entire chapter about the church mask, because I went through PTSD. And when I went through PTSD, I would go to the church and I would be like, I'm great, I'm blessed, highly favored, love the Lord, while inside I was becoming anxious, depressed, and suicidal. And so walking through PTSD and the Lord graciously and miraculously healing me, but it put a big conviction in me for authenticity. And so in our house, which one of them is sitting here, it's hard because I want to view myself as someone who always patient, oh, so loving, so kind. But when you are around people 24 hours a day, there are moments that you're not. And so one of the stories that I've been telling a lot when I teach on discipleship was I bought a house in Franklin, and I'm not married. And so I was having to do all these things that I would love a husband to do, right? And I was having to process the emotions of being a little bit older and not being married. And I couldn't just go, I am just so content in the Lord, it's fine. You know, like I had to really deal with and process these things while having to do things that I would love men to be doing for me. And I have great guy friends that were phenomenal, came and helped, but they couldn't do everything. So one particular day I was putting a new doorknob on our garage door, and it was one of those kind of electrical ones. And I'm not good at stuff like this. And so I'm trying to make it work, and I'm getting more and more frustrated. And it is definitely revealing how upset I was that I'm not married. I'm having to do these man things. I don't want to be doing like blah, 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 blah. And Julia, sweet girl, she could tell I was getting more and more frustrated. And so she comes out and she's like, do you need help? And I was like, no, I'm blah, blah, blah. And I kind of snap at her. And then after a couple of minutes, I literally just scream and walk away.
Yeah.
Low moment. You know what I'm saying?
Just
like
in your feelings.
Oh, all the feelings, 10 out of 10, all the feelings. And I just walk away so frustrated, acting like a child in front of this girl that I'm trying to teach how to manage emotions and how to deal with. And this is a very simple exercise and moment, right? But I had to walk back to her and just go, I'm sorry. I'm overwhelmed. I'm frustrated. I'm sad. I'm disappointed. And I need to go wrestle with this with the Lord because clearly it's affecting me. And so what I've tried to do is turn those moments into teachable moments, but it's definitely been very, very humbling because I've also had to be confronted with the reality that I don't have it as together as I would like it to seem as well. And it's really easy, as you know, it's really easy to put the face on in the pulpit. Yeah. But when somebody sees you at home, like they're seeing all of it. You're married, so I'm sure your wife, like she sees it all. She doesn't just see the pulpit, she sees the weaknesses as well. I actually think this is what's beneficial about discipleship.
Yeah, I agree.
And I agree with what you said earlier is not everyone can have everybody in their home, but you can bring them in and let them come sit at the dinner table. Let them see arguments that you might have with your wife, disagreements you might have. Let them see how you raise your kids when kids are throwing tantrums. That's the best thing for them, you know?
Yeah, and how many young people never see their parents argue, like with good intentions, but it can sometimes be very harmful is they just have never seen mom or dad argue. So when they get married and then they've never seen it, they just crash out sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. So my understanding, you're helping with a church plant, right? The Way Church?
Yeah.
How do we help equip churches to do discipleship more effectively?
I think that's such a big question. And there's such
Little
a dumb,
loaded,
it's
sorry.
like there's a whole book on that. But to begin, I think the first place to start if a church told me, Grant, we really want to get serious about discipleship, where do we begin? I would say the best place to start, though it's not going to be easy, is to start measuring discipleship. Yeah. And that's not going to be easy. It's way easier to measure an event on Sunday. It's way easier to measure small groups because you can say this many people showed up,
right.
This many people went, this many kids and children's and youth. But it's how do you measure? It's just like, how do you measure sanctification? It's whenever it's relational instead of attendance. It's just messy, but often that's the powerful stuff. Like, how could you measure love in a marriage? It's not easy. You could say, well, they went on 4 dates, or this person went to church 4 times this month. Yeah, and we do this that. Like we look at that a lot of like. I can't tell you how many times churches or pastors talk about like, attendance has gone down. The average churchgoer goes this much, and we're doing our best to try to measure commitment to Jesus through attending church. But I think when you get the team together and start trying to measure discipleship, it forces you to say, like, what is a disciple? Because then how do we know if they are one? What is discipleship look like here? But I think every church should be able to put 50 to 100 people at their church in different rooms with one piece of paper that simply asks the question, what does discipleship look like at this church? And I think that most churches do not have the type of clarity to where their people would answer. I think you could put the staff, elders, most bought in volunteers and some of the new people all in different rooms. And I think they'd all have generally different answers. And what that would tell us is we haven't measured discipleship because we haven't defined discipleship, at least for our church. We haven't given direction. People don't know what the on-ramp is. And so the most common word I've heard around the act of discipleship from a church is usually, oh, we kind of do it more organically. I'm only half Mexican. I always jokingly say, I think that organically must mean we don't have a plan, but we sincerely do want it to work and hope it's working. Or we throw all of discipleship on small groups. Yeah. And I love small groups. There is a part of me that hates our elevation of small groups, like in the same way that verse says, the verse that talks about like, it's not money, but it's the love of money. Yeah. And jokingly, I would say the church is so in love with small groups. Like it's the love of small groups in the sense that we throw the whole kitchen sink at small groups. Like it's supposed to be where you go deeper in theology. It's supposed to be where you find community, maybe find your spouse. It's supposed to be where you get mentored and discipled. It's supposed to be where you do missions. And I just think, when we took away Sunday school, took away potlucks, took away all these things that used to create family-oriented like experiences as a people, and we turned it into an in and out experience. I know it's because we're trying to reach as many people as possible. I don't think anyone's trying to mess things up, but it's a slippery slope to like drive through discipleship. It's just, we those moments where you like turn to your neighbor and say, hello, I've never met even a friend, let alone a good friend or a confidant through that. And again, I think we're doing our best, but for a way you're asking, like, we started doing community in small groups and saying we're unapologetically going to be a small group that's about community, which it feels almost bad to say this. In fact, you have me talk about Charlie Kirk, I feel almost more scared to talk about this. And small groups is, I would say so many small groups are Bible studies, and I think there's a place for Bible study. I actually prefer Sunday school because then you have the people kind of guiding those groups are really trained, and they can really guide and answer questions rather than, I don't want to say it's the blind leading the blind, but there are elements of that when it's just a whole bunch of people saying, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? And none of them really deeply know the word. Yeah. And so instead we're like, let's actually give our people space to do community. And if discipleship happens through relationships, we got to give them time to actually build relationships at this church. And again, turning to their neighbor is not on it for 5 seconds is not going to do that. Right. And maybe Sunday isn't the best place for community. Some community happens there, but we've just kind of accepted that. It's kind of a long answer, but I believe that in my experience, most churches have mission statements with about 3 things, maybe a 4th. It's usually something to do with loving God. Their mission statement says something to do with community or doing this together, something to do with reaching the city or reaching beyond the city. So it's usually like, and then sometimes about discipleship. Yeah. And so it might be like, we exist to love God or glorify God or something to do with God as a community and to the end until Nashville looks like heaven. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I love how you just simplified that so much.
Or it's like we exist to love God, make disciples, and reach people until our city looks like heaven. And, and all that's really good. So it's usually, and those are in the Great Commission. So I agree. I love that that's it. But for me, I'm really big on if you have values, then you have to have vehicles for those values. If you do not have vehicles for those values, they aren't true values. There's sentiment for it. There's appreciation, but there's not like, we are marked by this. We will not go forward until we have a vehicle and a plan to make this happen. Yeah. And so it's like, I'm thinking about a relationship. Like if I told my wife I love her and I knew she wanted to go on more dates together, she wanted to go on vacations together, she wanted to do all this. And I'm like, I'm telling you, I love you. And she's like, okay, so does that mean we're going to go do these vehicles, if you will? It's like, and I'm like, no, but I do love you. I'm gonna tell you for years I love you. And I would really probably love her. I don't love her to the degree of like, what have you desired of me? And Jesus' last words were, go and make disciples. This is like beginning of the whole thing. And most people have never been asked if they make disciples. Most people have never been taught how to make disciples. Most people, unfortunately, have never been disciples. So we're asking them to give something they've never received. Right. But when you measure discipleship, you start having to really nail down, okay, how can we do this? And so for Way Church, what we're really trying to move to this year is at the end of the year to survey our people, especially our members. There's a few churches I know that do this, which I think it helps you know more about your body. So it's not just like, well, one, like, I want to know, where do you work? I want to know about the kind of work you do, and maybe that can give us insight. And hey, we got a lot of people in this industry or this industry. We should like gather people there. Or those are great discipleship opportunities, because if you have a young person in the same industry as an older person who's like farther along in that, they would want to follow you and ask you questions and learn from you, because you're a Christian navigating that industry. Yeah. But then also we want to know, do you have someone who's committed to pouring into you? Also, are you committed to pouring into someone else? And I think these are some ways we're starting to measure. And then next year, I want to do a longer series, Lord willing, that we can say, now that we have like an assessment on how many of you guys are getting poured into and pouring into others, we want to give very practical guidance on how to make disciples. Because I think the great thing and almost the hard thing is, I've never met a Christian that didn't think discipleship was important.
100%.
Ever. They all think it's important.
Right.
But if you then go ask 100 Christians, are you getting discipled? And especially, are you discipling? Most would say no. So it's this weird, like, it's right before the action step. It's like, I've never met someone who wants to be obese. Like, I've never met someone who wants to be obese. But do we really want to do the hard work of like not eating that and not eating at that time anymore? Like, it's past this time. We don't eat late at night, or saying no to this when it's like one of your favorite foods, or spending more money just so you can eat healthier and not even enjoy it as much. Like, that's the action and behavior gap that has been hard to cross, I think, for the church towards discipleship. So we all value it. We don't all prioritize it.
Yeah. Okay, you would probably know the statistic better than me, because it's been a while since I've written anything on it. But Barna did a study. It was something like 80% of pastors believe discipleship is essential. Yeah. And less than 25. I think that sounds about right. What I've seen. Less than 25 are actually doing any type of discipleship in their church. So, I mean, you're speaking to that reality. I've never asked anyone and been like, discipleship, not necessary, secondary issue. We all believe it's a priority. Also, what you just said actually made me think about Julia's brother. He's a college student at University of Utah, and he's going to a church there. And they said, anyone in the congregation who wants discipleship, let us know. And they partnered him. He's a electrical engineer. They partnered him with a 72-year-old electrical engineer. And I'm like, that's brilliant. Yeah. Like, I love the kid. I pour into the kid, but I can't speak to his sphere at all, you know? And so setting people in that area, I think is absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah. I think thinking beyond just, again, the enemy's like in the older generation's ear. Two ways is like, what do you know? You don't know the Bible like that, or you're not a great speaker. Or honestly, sometimes they'll be like, what do you know? This generation, your grandkid could work that phone better than you can, or they have access to Google or AI. And it's whatever. I mean, since the beginning, trying to make us feel like we're inadequate. Yeah. And I always say discipleship is not like you need to be perfect. It's just frequently following someone who is spiritually a couple steps ahead. Yeah. And so when I have an older person who's like, I just don't feel like qualified, or they'll say, do you think anyone would even want to follow me? My life isn't like, I'm not a speaker like you. Yeah. Then I usually say, I don't think the question is, are you qualified? It's just simply, again, are you spiritually a couple steps ahead? And usually they're like, yeah, I definitely am. Or not even spiritually, are you a couple life stages ahead? Right. For example, okay, we're in 2 different life stages. And I don't know if you've noticed this, but almost every life stage comes with a constant question you're always asked. Sure. I already know your question. Your question probably you hate it.
Do you want to be married? Yeah. Are you going to get married? Why are you not married? Right.
So as soon as you get married, actually no, as soon as you get engaged, at your engagement, someone, if not several,
when are you going to have kids?
Will ask. Well, no, they're actually asked, when's the wedding? I just got engaged, and since then in the last 30 minutes, it'll be the engagement party. That's true. Yeah. When's the wedding? You'll be asked that until the wedding. Oh, you guys know. And then, it'll be as soon as you're married, even before you're married, actually, they'll be asking, when do you guys think you'll have kids? Yeah. And so I'm in that, when do you think you'll have kids? All the time. Oh, you guys don't have kids? Oh, you guys think about kids?
How long have y'all been married?
5 years.
Okay.
5 years.
Okay. Yeah. For
And then
sure.
I always wondered, like, okay, so once you finally have the kid, what happens? And they're like, when are you guys thinking about another?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, when do they, because they said, oh, they just keep asking another, you want to have another? And then they'll start asking after you have a lot of kids. My brother has 7 kids.
Wow.
Are you guys done having kids? And then it seems like the questions turn towards like, towards your kids. Like, oh, what are they graduating high school? Or when are they going to college? What are they majoring in? And you're almost answering questions for your family. But my point in that is like, there's always some stage that's next, and someone is there, and they may not even view themselves as this theological like leader, speaker, orator, CEO type, but they've been there.
Yeah.
And even if they didn't do it perfectly, and maybe even they're like, I didn't do that season even well, but now I know what I would have done. That like is invaluable wisdom that I really just try to keep reframing. We need these elders that have been there, they've done that. They're in that industry and they know what it's like, and we don't yet. And you could like save people from a lot of pain or tears or hard seasons if you could just guide them and give them some wisdom. And you maybe don't see that as spiritual because you're like, but that's not like me teaching them the word. But I think as you're answering certain questions, the word will be what encouraged you in those moments. And you'll string into the word into those answers. Just like last thing I'll say on this is, it's almost like we think Jesus showed up every week to the disciples and said, all right, Bible study. Like,
right.
And I always say there's a difference between mentorship and discipleship. Mentorship is come and meet with me. Discipleship is come and follow me.
So good.
Most people don't have time to come and meet with someone one more. Most people are trying to take things off their calendar, not add things, but someone could follow you and join you. But Jesus wasn't doing this weekly meeting or coffee or Bible study with the disciples. In fact, even for us who I think we over-glorify speaking in the church so much and we undervalue the power of discipleship, is Jesus's big message of 5,000. Right after that, he leaves those guys, which is, we're around big stadium gatherings, big events that try to reach people. If that was the follow-up plan today, people would criticize that group. Like, that's your follow-up plan? Just preach and leave. And I think it tells us, one, the message is important, but more important is investing in those 12 people. And so for me, when I see Jesus doing that, it really shifted me towards like, okay, I don't want to just be a speaker, even though that can reach a lot of people at the expense of being actually a disciple maker. And I really have shifted towards like, what do we value in the church today that Jesus didn't really value that much? Like, I think if we were leading back then, we would have tried to like start a mega church,
100%.
and it would have made the most sense even to us. It's
sure.
like, you have 5,000. This is like the best church launch team ever.
Right.
And let's then do it next week and next week and next week. But he actually leaves that to disciple the 12. And if you think about it, like if I ask most Christians, do you think you're here because of the 5,000 or are you here because of the 12? I'd say we're here way more because of the 12.
Right.
So there's something there that we don't understand about leadership that he did.
Yeah, I think that's so good. My spiritual father is a man named Michael Brodeur, and I always say that he's an expert in the science of church. And one of the things that he often talks about is that we're trying to judge the church on the game of basketball, but we have no ball, we have no hoop. And he's like, we're literally measuring things that the Bible didn't measure. And we're looking, we're making minor of the things that were major and major of the things that were minor. And that's so much of what you were communicating. I should connect you guys. You would love each other. He's brilliant in these areas. Are you going to write a book about this?
I'm working on one book about it, and just trying to make discipleship practical. I do think we've never seen as much hunger, at least I have in the last 15 years, among younger people to get discipled. Even unbelievers would say there's a lot of studies showing the increase of them wanting mentorship. I think it's the failure of colleges to help kids get jobs, and just even like truth. It's hard to know what is truth, and ironically, with all the information out there, it's made us less wise. And so there is this increase of young people seeking wiser people in their life. And I've also never seen as many churches admitting, hey, we need to do discipleship better. Like in the last 2 years, I've 2 dozen churches, big churches, well-known churches that hold conferences to teach other churches how to do church, saying we've hired this person or team and they've been charged figure out how we're going to actually do discipleship at this church. And that's really encouraged me that I'm seeing this uptick of churches that are like, they're not saying we know the answers, but they are employing people to like figure out what it looks like for us. And I don't think any church or I have the answer in discipleship. I just think every church should have a clear plan. I think any Christian should be able to go to a church and say, hey, I would like to get discipled. What would that look like? And not just say, join a small group. And that small group leader is supposed to be, again, a theologian, a mentor, community counselor, all this. It used to be the church staff was the equippers to, but now it's like we've thrown it all towards these small group people to do it.
I love that.
And so, yeah, I am really excited about trying to help people manually do it, because the value's there. I think it's the execution that's missing.
We need to wrap up, but I have 2 more questions.
Yeah.
So quick one. So you're working with Way Church. Are you on staff, or are you just
It's a unique
behind
role
the scenes?
where I would say it's an apostolic type role of, I really love Pastor Noah Heron, who planted this church. I do retreats for young leaders for almost a decade now, and he was at my very first one.
Wow.
And so when he said, hey, I want to come plant a church, potentially here, Tampa, or maybe Seattle, I said, if you come here, I think I'd be one of the best members, because I don't want to get paid and I don't want to work for a church, but I do want to help a lot.
Wow.
But I can't show up Monday through Friday, but I teach about once a month. I help with the culture. And so me and Cheyenne, my wife, help with the discipleship culture and the community culture and the mission culture.
Yeah.
That's the main thing. But it's cool because he kind of employs us to, hey, go check out our new members class, or go check out how we do this, and just tell us, how do we do this well? Because sometimes we just streamline everything, and it's like, how do we make sure this is actually a family experience, a community experience? It works well. But yeah, that's Way Church.
So you said that you don't feel like discipleship should be abdicated basically to the small group. So what are you doing in your I'm sorry, I phrased that wrong, but you want community to be built within the small group as opposed to a Bible study. Am I quoting you right?
I want community group to be very communal, so people
So what do
actually
y'all do?
meet
That's
each
what I was
other.
trying to get to.
Yeah. And this is the heart. So a big part of why I joined Way Church too, because you're part of the church. What's your role? Is I told them, I always get asked by people that, how do you do it? And I think a nonprofit, we both lead one, cheats a little bit and can do things that there's things that we can do that the church has to operate with whoever God gives them. Right. And there's really challenges in that. And I said, I want to fail forward in navigating how do we do discipleship, even if it's especially for the next generation. So our church is really young. I'm an old man in our church, and I'm sure we'll get older, but Pastor Noah's 30, and so he's even younger.
Wow.
But the church is blowing up, and like 900 people have given their lives to Jesus and responded. This kid's like super evangelist.
Yeah,
and,
come on.
All that to say is, community, we're really, really building right now, because we want people to, first, they have to have strong relationships. 2, we don't have a building, so it makes it hard to do some trainings. And
you guys
stuff
just moved
that.
out of, I attend Legacy. Y'all just moved out of our old
we're
building,
at Legacy's old building, and now we're at the Cannery, which is
great.
a music venue.
Great venue,
Awesome venue in the Gulch of Nashville and downtown. But yeah, the idea is right now, let's survey our people and get to understand where they are, and if any are already in relationships, and who's open to, who's sincerely, strongly desiring to get poured into and to pour into others, because then I know who to invite. And I'm fine with starting small and then keep rolling it out as I start with who's already in and wants to go that direction, because then I could do some training and classes with that group. But next year, I'd love for us to potentially do a series that goes a little bit more on the manual side, the practical side of, we know that you guys want to be discipled and, Lord willing, want to make disciples. I think the question is, how do we do that here, and especially in a relational way?
Yeah, that's so good. Okay, last question. Not trying to be controversial. Everything going on in our nation. How are you walking this out with the young people around you? Is it something that's really on their heart? Do you feel like they're deeply into this? Do you feel like they're separated from it? What's kind of your pulse on what's going on there, and how do we walk this out as people who disciple? And that's putting a lot of pressure on you to answer for a broad group of people. Take your time, and we can cut whatever you need.
No, it's fine. I just, my biggest goal is to try. I've always felt called to unite the next generation. I want to unite the church, but I felt early on maybe I can't unite the church, but I can make a dent in uniting the next generation of leaders. And that could create a new normal. And since I was young, I've always felt like since I was like 16, that God was kind of affirming, I'd want to use you to unite the church. But it was either towards one or two options, because we need to be united as the world becomes more and more of a harder place and there's persecution and it's dark and difficult, like maybe somewhat similar to the early church. And it's not going to be as like easy to be a Christian. So we need them strong and together and committed, or revival, which is of course what I prefer than persecution and difficulty and darkness. But regardless, I've never seen a revival that didn't have unity at part of it as the core of just bringing all these different Christians and denominations and tribes together. And so I think unity is a big part of what I'm trying to speak to people to. But I think the thing I don't hear enough people talking about that I think is going to be very important in these darker, difficult times is we've got to stop trying to especially just protect our platform. And I would say there's just such a pressure to build a platform, and Christians have bought into that just as much as the world has, especially the next generation. And, you know, when we were growing up, the thing I heard a lot of pastors ring an alarm about and say, watch out, guys, it was called the prosperity gospel. It was like, this is twisted. It's using God as a stepping stone to get to prosperity. And I think that this generation, just statistically, even unbelievers are not driven by money in the next generation as much as generations before them, but they do want to make a difference. Like everyone generally knows that and sees this generation like cares. They want to make an impact. They'll march. They'll care about something that's not even in their neighborhood, their city, or their country. Like they want to make an impact. And so if I was like thinking screw tape letters and the enemy's like, okay, I can't get them on money as much, then what do I get them on is like purpose and platform. And when I see the kind of preaching young people like the most, it's very purpose driven. It's God's call on your life, a breakthrough for him to like, it's a lot of like, you get to be the hero and you get to be the David and Jesus is the David and he will defeat Goliath, and we are spectating or joining the army of Jesus. But I think that, that purpose gospel is what I'm kind of concerned about. But the most, going back to, instead of the prosperity gospel, I would say I'm concerned more for young people who are obsessed with a type of platform gospel. And why that matters, especially in dark times, difficult times, persecuted times, is if you're a Christian and you really, really care about your platform, especially even if you have a Christian platform, then you won't do anything that might lose that platform. You won't say anything. You won't even like push against anything that might lose that platform. And I found a lot of Christians they even feel like God would tell them, wisdom would be like, don't do that or say that, even if that is your sincere core value or that's a biblical value, do not go there, because surely God wouldn't want you to lose a little bit of your platform.
Wow.
But if you look at the Old Testament, these dudes like Daniel is like, you can't do this or we're gonna kill you, throw you in the lion's den. He's like throwing up the windows, and the early disciples, it's kind of like these dudes weren't worried about getting canceled. They were worried about getting killed.
Jesus gets up in John 6 and preaches, eat my flesh, drink my blood, and everybody leaves. You know, horrible sermon idea, right?
Or one of the least quoted Beatitudes is Jesus said, blessed are those who are not offended by me. Wow. That is not the Jesus we usually paint out and the culture paints out. This guy who's like all for everything. Like the fact you would even say, blessed are you if you're not offended by me, because he calls us higher. He loves us where we are, but he definitely calls us higher. Even as Christians, even as strong Christians, God has a knack for still there's some more. There's and it's not that he just wants to make life harder. It's like he wants to make life better, and we've settled for less. And so this is platform protection, platform gospel will really hurt us from being a bold witness. Now Gen Z does care about platform too, even more. Like there's always an uptick of young people that want to be influencers and want to be that. But there's this new branch, I'm sure you get to be around a lot of Gen Z leaders, unlike millennial leaders who are trying to be cool. I'm seeing Gen Z are like, I'm just want to preach the gospel. And that's been convicting and stirring for millennials and for Xers and all of us to see these guys are like prophetic, almost like voices crying out in the wilderness. And I'm excited, for that group that's willing to be bold. And last thing I'll say is Charlie Kirk event. Are getting to witness, after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, I'm witnessing as more Christians than I've ever seen, influential speaker, author, musician, or just a normal college kid that is posting online who used to, I don't curate this look and this image and this mask, if you will, or I don't want to ruffle any feathers or rock the boat. So we are almost like closeted Christians. And it's kind of wild is that in 20, 30 years, you used to like come out of the closet because you felt like I'm going to be judged if I'm homosexual. I'm going to be cast out. I'm going to be like canceled, if you will, though we didn't use that language then. And the culture has changed so much that through the assassination of Charlie Kirk, we're seeing a lot of Christians posting like, it's hard because a lot of things have been politicized that are biblical values, but we've politicized like abortion, or we've politicized so many things that is around sexuality,
homosexuality,
that now all of a sudden you're like this MAGA pro, like
it's
fascist,
not a political
all these
issue.
things. It's like no, like Christians have always for thousands of years, the ancient church has cared about these things, but again, the enemy's so great of like, but hey, that's going to make you lose your platform. That's going to make you lose this, and so young people are like, okay, I'll share with my friends that agree. I'm not going to put that online, or I'm not going to lead in those moments or shepherd in those moments. But now it's like people just shared about the death of a human, an image bearer with Charlie Kirk, and they got a lot of flack. I can't tell you how many like musicians, speakers, authors, like American Idol, all these different people that are like in their close friends on Instagram saying, guys, I'm like losing thousands of followers and getting the nastiest DMs right now just because I'm hurt and sad that someone was murdered and assassinated. And Forrest Frank, who's the nicest guy ever, and he's super nice. He's not rocking the boat in a lot of ways. And even he would say, I'm losing 30,000 followers in one post because of that. So here's what I'm pointing out. But then I've never seen this side where they're like, forget it, I don't care anymore. Like, I'm so tired of like, it's like, I'm done. And that excites me because it's not just about like, there's definitely not just about politics. Is that, okay, that's shedding the fear of man. Is like, this is my like biblical value. And it's like, these guys are coming out of the closet for their Christian values that maybe don't align with what the world loves right now. And you will get canceled, or you will get persecuted, or you will be called out. But it's not about being offensive. It's not about being mean. But man, there's a lot of young Christians, millennials, we were the worst at it, that just try to do like very relational evangelism, where it's like, I just want to be cool and fun and your friend. But I remember an old like Baptist pastor evangelist being like, I love you guys for trying to be nice and relational and all that. The one thing is, you guys never make the sale, if you will. Like, you never then say, do you want to receive Jesus? And do you want, or do you want to repent from these things? Like, so you're just friends forever. And it's like that guy on the sales team who's like, I got leads, I got all the friendship. But you look at their scoreboard, it's like, but you've not sold anything. And it's like, that's kind of what you do. While Gen Z is like, right away, it's like, hey, do you want God? Like, I'm telling you. And it's in a bold, stern, kind, gracious way.
It's so refreshing. I love what you're saying, because I do think there has been this fear of losing influence, losing platform. And this last week I've looked and I've gone like, wow, like so many of you don't care. And that's the gospel, right? Like, one of my favorite passages is Acts chapter 4, after Peter and they had been beaten, they'd been ridiculed, and they go back and they begin to pray and they say, Lord, give us more boldness. And I look at, I've said often, the church today, what I believe would happen is we'd go, Lord, take away the persecution. Lord, make them stop. Lord, punish them. Protect us. Like, change the culture, change the way. They didn't. They just said, give us more boldness. Like, they didn't even ask for the persecution to stop. And so I'm looking at this over the last few days and I'm going, I recognize that spirit, right? Like, I recognize that passion, that fire in Acts chapter 4 of the early church that said, stone us if you want, shoot us if you want. Like, we're going to preach the gospel and give us more boldness to do it.
And I think that's where the authority is. And that's been lacking in the next generation of leaders. The curated look, the cool. We grew up with, I don't know about you, but my youth pastor wore like cargo shorts, a too tight of a camp green, like highlighter shirt, and puka shells. They were not cool. Youth and young pastors were not cool. And the millennials, that's we did some good, but there's one thing we really moved the church was like trying to be cool. And some of the things Jesus says and stood for is not cool in a dark or broken world. One
of my young girls, and we can end with this, but she worked in Hollywood for a season, worked on different children's shows and stuff with Nickelodeon, and very much was in the trendy, cool church scene in LA and all of these kind of things. And through a process, gave her life fully to the Lord, moved here. And she made this comment. We're doing prayer every morning at our house this week. And she said, I'd never really had to think about, would I be willing to die for my faith before? She's not done missions. She's not done some of those things. And most missionaries, we've had that thought before. Like, am I willing to die for the gospel? Most American Christians haven't had to have that thought. Like, we haven't lived in a culture where that's been a thought. And one thing that this provoked was believers went, would I die for the message? And she just in tears was like, I had to sit before the Lord and wrestle with this. Will I die for the name of Jesus? And I'm like, you are in the best place you can be right now. Wrestle this thought out with God. And I'm grateful for what God's doing in this generation. And I'm sure you as well. I'm expectant and hopeful. I look around and I go, wow, Gen Z, you guys are bold. You are fiery, you are integrous, you are more than willing to go and pay the price to do it. And so I'm always telling church leaders, I'm not hopeless. I'm full of hope. Like, I'm excited for what God's doing. So I'm thankful for your voice. I've loved this conversation. I feel like we could talk for so many more hours. Thanks. I'd love to just pick your brain some more too. One thing that I feel that you're doing that I just love is that you are decluttering a lot of these thoughts. Like, I listened to you talk about discipleship and I'm like, man, you're making this simple. And I love that. You're making this digestible for pastors, for leaders, and you're doing the stuff behind the scenes and in front of the camera, but you're doing it. And I just super grateful for your voice, super grateful for what you guys are doing at THINQ, and just the way that you and Gabe and y'all are sowing your lives into this, kind of this next generation, but also just this tension that we're walking in. And so thanks for that. I'm so excited. How can someone who's watching follow you, get involved with what you're doing, all of that fun stuff?
Yeah. Quickly, I want to just honor you in that you have someone, that you have people live with you. I mean, that's like the 1% of the world, like the church, even. And just to encourage you and knowing one of your disciples are here is, I'm working on a second book to really study what are the key factors that happen in young people's life, whether they're coming up, that like help them become just such a high capacity leader. And when they credit their parents for being active in their faith or their career, and I know you're not their parents, but you're doing something that I just kept hearing is they said they would often fail or do something wrong, and even to me as a child, and they would apologize. Like, they would come and say, hey, I'm sorry. And you talked about that masked Christianity that we can wear to the church for an hour or so. And I think it shows people they're not perfect, but the Holy Spirit is in this house and in that person's life, because they didn't have to come back. It would have just been between me and them, and they could just put on the show at church. But it's like, no, they want to make things right. The Holy Spirit, like, it was even hard, maybe even embarrassing for a mom or dad to come and say, hey, 6-year-old daughter, like, I was quick, I was short, I was snappy, you didn't deserve that. Will you apologize? Well, will you forgive me? And this generation, our generation, definitely didn't grow up all the time with parents that would, especially dads, who would apologize or ask forgiveness. And so that they're going to see that, like, honor you, like, stewarding your single years and like that. And getting plugged in with me, luckily I'm Mexican, South African, and awesome. I've never met another one. And so I have a name that I've never seen before. And anything Grant Skeldon, I usually have it. So my website is Grant Skeldon with Skeldon, and my Instagram, I don't really tweet at all, but Instagram and
that's awesome.
Website is there.
Mexican, South African.
Yeah, mom's Mexican, dad's South African. They met in Alabama.
Wow. That's a story for another day, I am certain. Hey guys, thank you so much for joining At the Table with Jess. You can like the video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and follow Grant and what THINQ is doing. And even if you're in the Nashville area, I've heard Way Church is phenomenal. Go check it out. Get plugged into a local church, man. Get into the Word of God and find a mentor. Find someone to disciple you. Find someone to pour into you. Just as we've talked about in this conversation today, it's a huge determinant of just this generation, the ones who have someone pouring into their life and the ones who don't. So find someone to disciple you, find someone to disciple. We love you guys, and we'll see you next week.